would like to invite to the stage our last 3 nominees this afternoon. I told you this bending in the paper corners. Someone should invent paper clips. Can I invite Sally Carr, Dr. Oman Imadi, and Emma Wilkes to the stage. Loving this shirt.
Thank you very much.
I didn't notice it was penguins. That's really cool. And the hair, fabulous. And I'm sorry, these legs. Unacceptable. So, Sally, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right.
Perfect, yeah.
So, when I was researching you, I came up with a little phrase. You've got a lot of labels to your name, haven't you?
Yes, I have. And I guess, you know, it's because I also have many different roles. I kind of describe myself as a quiet yet ambidextrous leader.
I like that.
Thank you.
Some of the other titles, Romany Gypsy, labels, young carer, feminist, lesbian, working class, the list goes on.
It does.
And yet, you've been adding more titles. In fact, you've been helping so many people in the work that you do. You're extraordinary.
Thank you. That's really, really kind. Thank you for
You're
that.
not going to cry, are you?
Well, I don't know. I'm inspired. Kath was crying. So
Oh, well, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, the back's been broken. So let's just dissect a couple of those labels then.
Okay.
There are 2 in particular which stand out as being of conflict. Obviously your family background, but then also your lifestyle and the way that you live, that they don't seem to, being a Romany Gypsy and being a member of the gay community, they don't seem to go hand in hand very well.
No, okay. Thank you. It's an interesting one that you raise. I'm doing a lot of work actually currently with Gypsy Roma Traveller organisations to work collaboratively to be more LGBTQ plus inclusive. And that's really because of my experience as a child growing up, where from the age of 4, I knew I was gay. I knew that. I knew I was different to the other girls in the class. And the words gay and lesbian were just used as insults. Now, I knew I was gay, and they knew I was gypsy. So to be in a position where I'm facing racism for being gypsy, and that was about other people's racism actually more than me being gypsy, and knowing I was different as well, and that my gender presentation was different, my sexual orientation was different to the other people around me, nobody else was identifying as this, meant that I was growing up really with a lot of trauma, an awful lot of trauma. And I came out at 21, and if I say I fled from my home, I did. I fled, and I had to set up quite independent life. Fortunately, at that time, you could go to university and it was all paid for. University was a massive challenge, absolutely was, and it was at the time when there was polytechnics. And Manchester Polytechnic just was great and it embraced me. And there I met incredible people, and in particular, incredible women youth workers who taught me to be proud of who I am and actually to embrace life and to do the best that you can be. So from that basis, I trained as a youth and community worker, and my life since then has gone on and has been much better. I set up the biggest LGBT youth organisation in the UK, the Proud Trust, and today I work for an incredible sports organisation called Street Games, where we work with young people in the lowest socio-economic groups. But that intersectional discrimination exists for people, and it's real, and it holds people back. Because alongside celebrating people's identities, we've got to understand the discrimination that still continues, and really work hard to try and support people to build networks, to introduce them to other people, because that is what unlocks prosperity. Resilience on your own doesn't work. You need people around you. People need people. But beyond that, we need these resilient networks that will hold us, that will offer that scaffolding so we can progress. And that is a valuable lesson that I learned about just don't do anything on your own.
So are things not getting better?
Things getting better, you know, there was a campaign, I don't know if people heard of it, it was an LGBT plus campaign of things get better. They do for some people, But actually, if you're black, if you're brown, if you're ethnically minoritized, if you're working class and poor, and we know that actually there is now the creation of the hyper poor as well, then there are a lot of blocks and barriers. So even though legislation has brought us a long way forward, we've seen recently that legislation has turned against Gypsy Roma traveller people. So the right to stop is being challenged, and there are still 10,000 people whose lives are nomadic in this country, and we're an invisible population that faces an awful lot of racism. For a lot of LGBT people, particularly trans people, we've seen the transphobia every day that they're experiencing. So there is things that have changed, a lot of public attitude has changed, but we're still on a journey. And I put a plea to you all. It is a journey that we can all collaborate to so that it does get better. And we do stand up for each other. And we call each other in when we think that people are saying things that are inappropriate or just downright discriminatory.
Couldn't have been better. So, Doctor, I've got this rash. I haven't, in case anyone doesn't want to sit next to me outside for having a drink. So, we talked about titles with Sally. You've got a few of your own. GP of the Year, Northwest Faculty, Royal College General Practitioners 2019. Fabulous legs, very jealous. Now, we've talked a few times this afternoon about how the pandemic affected us. I can imagine in your profession, that effect was profound.
Yeah, the pandemic, when it started, it was, profound, definitely. That's the word. It was unprecedented. There was a lot of anxiety and fear in the community, and people were not sure what was happening at that time. And we as clinicians were also worried as well because we didn't know what to do. And suddenly we had to close the surgeries and work remotely, which was different from what we were used to.
And the one thing that I noticed, in particular at the start of the pandemic, is, yes, there's that fear of the unknown, but you suddenly realise, I think, Sally, it was like you were saying, that you are disconnected from other people. So how do you address that? Because not only are you as GPs disconnected, but you know your patients, some of them who really need not to be disconnected, they're on their own all of a sudden.
Yeah. So I was fortunate to be working in a practice that was really forward-thinking during the pandemic. And we did a few things, really. So I'm very social media savvy. So I went on social media and started to share videos, health promotions, health awareness about the COVID, hand washing, just simple things like that. And the practice where I was working for at the moment, at that time, my boss is here, Dr. Pitalia, SSP Health. So,
oh yeah, you need to get that in. Tell them how great they are. If you don't get a pay rise by the end of this, Mrs., then you've failed.
So, well, what we did was then, I was working closely with Dr. Adeko, and we did an audit on carers at that time. And the audit was really to check on carers, because we were focusing so much on patients, but who was caring for the carers? I'm talking of unpaid carers, like, people caring for their parents, people caring for their families. And we did an audit just to check and, see what they were going through. And another thing the practice did at that time was to get, the admin staff to call people, just for courtesy check-ins. And I think it was amazing. Dr. Adeko and myself did the audit, and we submitted it to the NICE Shared Learning, which was published last year.
Sorry, did I miss that? You started ringing patients? Yes. Listen, anyone who's tried to get through to a doctor's surgery...
Not me personally, the admin staff.
Yeah, receptionists. Yeah. I know receptionists. Yeah, my mum worked in a doctor's surgery. She was really good at not answering the phone. That's a big shift for you to suddenly get not just the clinicians, but everybody doing outreach.
At our practices then, the admin staff were doing that because it was a way to check on our elderly patients. And even before the pandemic, the practice normally sent birthday cards to our elderly patients. So it was just an extension of that kind of thing we used to do. So I think it was really, really good because people were left, alone. We have patients that have no family, no kids, or maybe their kids live in Australia or somewhere really far, and they had no one, and they were locked in the house, and there was no one to, check on them. So I think it was something that was really important at that time. And the audit we did actually showed up that finances was the least of people's worries at that time. It was just the companionship that people wanted.
I must admit, I suffered a bereavement at the start of lockdown, and I'm still to this day in shock that I got a bereavement card from my GP. I hadn't told him, but obviously from the records that had happened, that had a massive impact.
Yeah. Sometimes people forget the little things GPs do. I'm going to be a bit biased, but as GPs throughout the
This is the place to do it, mate.
Yeah, true. Throughout the pandemic, we worked really hard. I was working 5 days a week, even though it was virtual. And even before the vaccines came back, we started to go back to practice 2 to 3 days a week, and we were seeing patients physically. What we did was just to cut it down to patients that needed to be seen, patients that really needed physical examination. But if it was things that could be dealt with over the phone, we could, deal with that over the phone, because we're not just protecting ourselves, we're also protecting the patients, because we have vulnerable patients, and we don't want people sitting in the waiting room. The waiting rooms are small, and if it's filled up with sick people, then obviously we're going to spread the virus. So that was one of the reasons why we were doing that. And I know we're a bit misunderstood, but, this staffing issue, funding issues have been there even before the pandemic. But I think we did the best we could with what we had throughout the pandemic.
You're right, GPs get a really hard time, but I can imagine female GPs in particular. And as Sally was saying, we still live in a society where things are assumed about other people, which is, I think it's amazing that you're now investing your efforts in helping other Black practitioners.
Yeah. When I was training, I found that, looking around me, I didn't see any Black woman that looked like me that I could look up to.
Well, those legs are to die for. I'm not surprised you didn't see any.
Thanks. And when I finished training, during my training, I had a group of friends. We were 4 in a WhatsApp group, and we used to support each other and just, rant sometimes and just, go through all the challenges we were going through. And we were there for each other. And when I finished, I thought about setting up something bigger. And I'll be honest, I've never told her. One of the first few BAME women I saw that really inspired me was Dr. Pitalia. She's here. I'm not saying it because she's here.
No,
I would have said it.
I think we've made that point. There's a pay rise, definitely.
But when I saw her, the first day I met her, I was like, wow, powerful woman. We need more like you. And because I already had those thoughts in my heart, and I've encountered young girls wanting to go to medical school, saying they don't have any role model. I had a patient come in once and we're like, how did you do it? I want to be a doctor like you. And it was this 14-year-old Black girl. And I was like, well, this is Manchester. You can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be. And that kind of really touched me, because I think representation matters. And that was one of the reasons. When I Googled online, I couldn't find Black women in health in the UK. When you Google Black women in health, as of 2 years ago, it used to be like olden days pictures coming up, or Black women in health in America. And I was like, no, this has to change. We want 16-year-olds and 14-year-olds writing their GCSEs to Google and say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, and they can just check it up and see people that look like them. So one of the reasons why I created the group was to create a space for connecting, engaging, empowering each other, and most importantly, celebrating each other. And we started as 3 people, and we've grown to a network of over 500 women now. Doctors, nurses, dentists, pharmacists. So, yeah. And I think, again, going back to the pandemic, before the pandemic, we were less than 100. But during the pandemic, the group grew, because what happened was that we realized that we needed to support each other, especially with the news about the disparities, about how COVID was affecting the BAME community. We needed each other at that time. So the group actually grew in the last 18 months from 100 to over 500. And we had, people that were going through disciplinary action at work, people that were not being risk assessed properly. So we had to be the voice, we had to empower each other. And we saw an opportunity as well to help our Black community, to educate them on, medical conditions they might have, and also to empower them with the information to deal with that. And when the COVID vaccine came out, there was a lot of reluctance and hesitation in my community. So we had a lot of work to do. So we did a lot of webinars. We worked with faith leaders, myself and my team from Black Women in Health. We worked with faith leaders. We spoke at webinars and multiple webinars and meetings, and we were able to at least convince some people. And from the webinars and meetings we did, we were able to do an audit and a survey as well, to see how best to engage with the community. We submitted this to the NICE guideline, and it was published as well for shared learning last year.
Congratulations. Subtle shuffle, not. Emma Wilkes is from the Neo community. Now, I've just been forced to binge watch The Matrix. So to me, Neo is something completely different. So would you like to give a proper definition?
So NEO is a charity based in the Wirral, which stands for Need, Engage and Organise Community-Led Change, which is a full community. We don't differentiate from anyone, any economic background, faith, colour. It's just open to everyone. Community shouldn't just be for the poor people. Support shouldn't just be for the poor people. It should be for everyone. And when everyone comes together, as Sally said, there's no point one woman sitting here saying you did something. We did it because we're an amazing team and we've got an amazing volunteer network across Wirral, and we all come together to do things.
So it started off with the basic premise, and I think over the last couple of years it's been a subject which certainly at this event we've talked about quite a lot, which is food poverty and food inequality. Yeah. And that was your starting point? Yeah, so 9 years ago I started a community cafe that I wanted to make sure that everyone could access. It didn't matter if you had money or didn't have money, so we set up the pay as you feel. So it was pay with time, skills or money, because everyone's got one of the three. Even if they don't know they've got skills, we'll find the skills, and everyone's got some time. So it was a sort of culture shift and a community currency, which seemed to take off and seemed to work. And very much and very quickly we realised what a problem we had with food in our area and the wider area, and working with other community projects across the area and across the country. We worked and helped support set up Feeding Britain and putting the End Hunger Bill in, which is seeing every school holiday all children eligible for free school meals have activities, fun and food for free. When we started seeing the introduction of food banks, there were very high-profile politicians, because I remember I was working in Manchester, who were turning around and saying, well, if you're going to give out free food, of course they're going to come and use it, without taking into the fact that actually there's an issue of dignity. Yes. And everybody has that right to be dignified and live the life that we would all want.
I think that's, I think the word dignity, people get sick of hearing me say it, in all fairness, in our team. But it is dignity, and that is why we are not a typical food bank. We have a community shop, but again, it's not price marked. We have a community cafe, and it's about being able to just come in with everyone else. So there might be a really flash Jag parked outside the centre with someone who didn't have the bus fare to get there. And when that person that's come across from a manager's job, and for the environmental problem, because obviously we've also got a massive food waste problem in this country, so we've got these hyper poor, but we've also are throwing ridiculous amount of tons of food in the bin every year that's fit for people to eat. So the people that will come in and use it as an environmental project, paying some money forward, giving some time and skills to help someone else, then allows, when someone comes through, to give them free support and free help. But along with that is the dignity of choosing the food that their family want to eat, choosing and making sure it's fresh and not tinned, high salt, high sugar content food, and ensuring that it's cooking together. And that's why last year our team, sadly and well at the same time, were in the right place at the right time for the pandemic and had those skills. And with two other community organisations, with Gorpy Road, who's come with us today, set up and supported the Wirral Council food support, and supported 35,000 families with food.
And by, as we've heard a couple of times today, by supporting them with food, you're investing in the future of not just the Wirral, but in the future of this country. I think everyone can relate to the fact that if you don't have food equality, then you might as well give up the ghost, because we need these people. We need everybody on the same page.
Definitely, and I think the one thing that we always say is food is the one thing that makes absolutely everyone equal within a country. The Queen needs food, the person that's living on the street needs food, and together, if you use food as a conduit for conversations, so many problems, so many peer support projects, and just so many barriers can be overtook just sitting around and having a dinner together.
And the peer support's great because you're investing in individuals and then they come back and they invest.
Yeah.
I mean, to win a Queen's Award for voluntary service, that says something about the sense of community that you're building in your area.
Yeah, that was our team. I was immensely proud that all our volunteers won the Queen's Award this year. And it is that lived experience. We went from me starting a cafe to 13 employed people that have lived experience and come through that door and now have jobs, and 43 volunteers that are there every day, and hundreds of people that pop in and do things. So yeah, it's really important for everyone to do something together.
And it's like Sally said right at the very start, we've all got to work together to make that change. And I think the three of you are extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Congratulations on being nominated for this award.
So I'm Kate Squire. I'm the, what's my title now? Executive Editor. It changes every week, of BBC Radio Manchester. And I love supporting this award. And BBC Radio Manchester has supported Inspiring Women Awards for, 12 years? More than that. A long time. A long, long time. And we will continue to do so. But I love the Community Award. Amazing stories, and everybody who's been here today has been fantastic. But community is what it's all about, and I think BBC comes in for a bit of stick these days, but BBC Local Radio is all about community. I don't know whether you listen to BBC Radio Manchester, but you should, because it's all about things that happen in Greater Manchester. And throughout the pandemic, we were literally a lifeline for so many people. And I would say the new pandemic is the cost of living crisis. And it's going to be huge. We know that, don't we? And we are going to be there for all our communities around that. Probably in this room, we're going to feel the pinch, but for our audience, it is going to be a choice of heating or eating, and it's going to be really difficult. So we bring communities together, we galvanise communities. It's a really important award, and you've heard all three of the finalists do that. So it's really, really hard to choose a winner. I remember judging this category not very long ago, but we've got to have a winner. So here we go. The winner of the Community Award, Inspiring Women 2022, is Emma Wilkes.
Maybe I should have thought of something to say. Thank you, that's amazing. And as it's been said, there's no inspirational single woman. It's about coming together, and I've got the most amazing friends and family, which are Neo, and they all support us. We all work together and we make massive difference, and thank you.
Oh, wow. I can have a drink finally. It's fantastic to see so many people here that I've seen over the years. And I'd like to thank Nima Chowdhury from Eversheds, because Nima was at the first one. She took a table at the very first awards 30 years ago. You don't look any older, but thank you. And I think that longevity is, Deloitte have sponsored for over 25 years, Cheshire Life and Radio Manchester, just people that have stayed with the awards and supported us, and I'm extremely grateful for that, so thank you. Just a few closing remarks. Hank, can you just, because you want to do something in a minute, so just hover. And it's great, isn't it, to be able to wear something lovely. So I bought this dress and I wasn't sure if I've got it on back to front. So for the, I was going to go and change at half time to see if anyone would notice and say I've come back. I can also brag that I can actually get into the first outfit I wore 30 years ago, but I was pregnant at the time, and it was a maternity suit, so... As Sally was leaving, and our special guests have all gone, so I can tell this story now. So for those of you that follow Coronation Street, you'll realise that Sally's husband's called Tim, and they're having a few problems in the bedroom, let's say. So as Sally was going, I said, oh, you know, good luck having sex with Tim tonight, thinking, you know, I'm like, I've watched the programme, it's on tonight, let's... And she just looked at me, and then I realised her real husband's called Tim. You can take the girl out of Brumbo. So I just have a few thank yous, so please bear with me. But thank you again to all the sponsors, and to everyone that's bought a ticket, because if you didn't, we couldn't do this and we couldn't share these stories. So I am really grateful that we have this fantastic room here today. I think Michelle has done a brilliant job, given... You can probably tell that the dress rehearsal was like 2 minutes before you entered this room. And she just has that professional edge and that ability to bring out the best in people. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you to our special guests. I know they've gone, but they might see this. Thank you to the staff at the Lowry who have been seamless in the... Thank you. And surprisingly, very creative, have been professional today. So thank you, Eamon and the team. I'd like to thank Lynn, who I inherited back in, I think, 1995 or 6 as part of a sponsorship package, and I've never been able to shake her off since. So thank you, Lynn. And thank you, Hank, for, you know, thank you for just being you, sweetheart. And thank you also to Nadine and Frankie. For those of you that don't know, I did 7 years as a university lecturer, and they were my first students. And they... So even though they've gone on to do fantastic things, interestingly, with a domestic abuse charity and with breast cancer, they still turn up for me, and there's no brownie points in it because, you know, I can't mark your stuff anymore. So, but thank you, thank you. And the good news is that we're now at the height of Manchester's rush hour. So please feel free to go downstairs 1 level and enjoy drinks in the bar. We'll be joining you. But before all that, I'd like to invite back onto the stage, first of all, the finalists, and then the winners. If the winners could just kind of stay at the front, but the finalists come back on stage. Thank you.